Hello, my name is Krista Sandin, and this is my presentation for Bio 331 about mating dances in animals. So, mating dance is a series of movements, usually rhythmic, intended to encourage another member of an animal species to reproduce with itself. It usually encourages the mate by showing off its desirable traits, such as bright feathers or big movements, or just other signs of good health. And typically, it's males that are performing these dances to the females of their species, although this isn't always the case. And most of these studies are done in species of birds because they are observed to do it a lot, but they can also be seen in seahorses and scorpions and a variety of other vertebrates. So, the costs versus the benefits of this kind of behavior is that it costs a lot of energy and a lot of time. So the individuals performing the dances, they use up their energy to actually perform the dance, and they also use their time and energy to actually find the mates in order to perform the dances too. But the benefits are that the possibility of finding a good mate increase by having the individual who is being performed to being able to determine whether or not, based on the dance, they want to reproduce with them. So it increases fitness overall. It also strengthens bonds in between the animals, which is good for a lot of animals that pair bond, specifically birds. It starts off as a good way to choose an individual to spend a long time with. So an example of this is this hummingbird mating dance, and I'll let you guys watch it and then explain it in a little bit. So this was a video of the Costas hummingbird, which lives in North America, and as you can see, it was spreading the feathers on its neck to show its bright iridescent feathers, which is a sign of good nutrition, and also moving in a rhythmic way to show that it has energy to spare. Unfortunately, in this example, the female did not end up mating with the male, but I guess that's just his loss. Another example is the brown tree snake, which is found in Australia. And a quote from the study done by Michael J. Green and Robert T. Mason is that courtship begins when a male tongue flicks the dorsal integument of the female. In snakes, sex pheromones are detected by the vomeronasal organ via tongue flicking. It's also worth noting that the females also do this behavior as well. This was just a quote from the male section of the article. After the tongue flicking, it starts bobbing its head in a rhythmic way, and then the mating actually starts. Another example from South America is the mannequin of the Piperidae family. It is considered to be one of the most complex dance and song ritual observed in nature, having the bird jump from branch to branch doing 180-degree spins, just really displaying a high energy and displaying a strong ability to move in a specific way. They also pop their wings to create even more stimuli. So it is not only moving, but it's also making sounds, all to try and attract a mate. So, where would this kind of behavior be adaptive or not? So, you can see it a lot in environments with lots of sexual competition. The individuals that perform the best are going to be the ones that are most healthy and the ones that will pass on their better genes. This is also in environments that promote social behavior because a lot of this communication between the animals is very social. And you don't see it as much in environments with little to no competition because if there wasn't any competition, the dances would just be a waste of energy because the whole point of the dance is to put the individuals above the other individuals that are trying to mate with a specific member of their species. And there's typically lots of variation between mating dances in different species. So it suggested that the sexual behavior displays evolve more rapidly than other adaptations. But this does need to be studied more, although that would explain why they're so different, even in species that are closely related. An example of this is the mannequins that we talked about earlier. Here's a graph that is discussing, or it's showing the behaviors that are performed in these mating dances by the different members of the Piperidae family. And as you can see, even though they're all closely related, their behaviors are all very different. How do these mating dance behaviors relate to neurology? Mating dances often target the visual and auditory systems of the individual that they are trying to woo, for lack of a better term. They rely on impressive displays and audio cues to impress their chosen mate. And there are other systems that they target, but these are the two main ones that I've seen in my studies. So I wanted to also talk about the vestibular system. It's a sensory system that is related to balance and body position. It deals with organs typically in the inner ear, which sends signals to the brain regarding the individual's orientation and space. It's like if an individual is upside down or to the side or just kind of where it is. Sorry about that. It was likely evolved in creatures to aid in more complex movement. And it's important where balance is necessary to navigate, which is a lot of creatures. So, mating dances are a way for individuals to showcase their advanced vestibular system as a sign of increased fitness. Obviously, an individual that has really poor balance or can't move around very well probably isn't going to have the best genes to pass on to any potential children they would have. So, mating dance is one way to show off that they have a pretty good vestibular system. It's also worth noting that mating dances require cognition in animals. They must have the ability to decide whether or not to mate with an individual based on its performance. So, this shows a certain level of higher thinking, which makes sense why it's seen in birds because birds are quite intelligent animals. Um, and it's just like that kind of decision making ability that would require cognition. The last thing I want to talk about is the PAG. I It is part of the midbrain that has a quote critical role in the production of innate survival behaviors and integrating inputs from hypothalamic areas involved in sexual motivation. So, studies have shown that stimulating this area of the brain resulted in spontaneous vocalization, which could deal with the vocalization part that a lot of mating dances have. It also deals with complex survival situations and communication. It's theorized to be the main part of the brain responsible for complex mating behaviors. And more studies do need to be done in this area. However, the mating dances would be the stimulus for the animal that is receiving the dance, so to speak. It would likely be processed in this area of the middle brain. The animal watching the dance would have to decide whether or not to mate with the other, again, relating back to the cognition aspect of it. So that is all I have to say about mating dances. I hope you guys enjoyed my presentation.